Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. So I'm here today with my little weenie dog, Daisy. So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different today. Instead of doing a trailer reaction like I usually do, I decided to do kind of like a short, brief discussion, a brief analysis, basically regarding to one of the best Netflix shows out there right now, which is Cobra Kai, which is a spin-off based off the 1984, you know, classic The Karate Kid. Yeah, if you guys don't know this story, go watch it. Watch the original movies, particularly the first one, the 1984 Karate Kid, and also please check out this Netflix show of Cobra Kai. It is so good. So many laughs, cool action scenes. The characters are so compelling and interesting and fascinating. I could see why this show is so popular for for people who grew up in the 80s with the Karate Kid original franchise, and even for the new generation who are now being introduced into the Karate Kid franchise. It's a good mix of both. I highly recommend it. And I was really thinking about like should I do a video, should I not? But what really got me into making this video is, yes, I have seen all three seasons. So just to let you guys know, there is gonna be a bit of spoilers, so you have been warned. There will be some spoilers here and there. So if you're okay with that, go ahead and continue watching the video. But I'm not gonna do like a full on what is the story about, so to say. What I mostly want to talk about, which is what, in my opinion, I find the show to be so fascinating, is basically regarding the characters. I feel that the writing of all the characters in the show is what makes this series work. It's what makes it so not good but great. It's just how the characters and their journeys are so well written. So again, gonna keep it I'm gonna try my best to keep it brief, but again, I'm not gonna go into like the whole story, like from seasons 1 to 3, and what are the predictions, what may happen in season 4. I really want to focus more on the character dynamics, how the characters affect one another, and why their journeys, are so intertwined with other characters, and again, as to why it makes it such a fascinating story. Um, Particularly, I'm gonna go over three categories, that being a friendship. Um, Also, of course, a bit of love triangles that are going on in this show, and of course, the whole father and son or daughter dynamic between the senseis and their students. So those kinds of relationships are what I'm going to be discussing in this video, and why I believe they are so well written. So to start off with number one, we're going to talk about the friendships in this show. The friendships, I think I really like the friendships. It's so cool to see how, particularly with the high school kids, right? Whether they're the ones who join, oh, sorry about my doggy Daisy, but whether they join Daniel LaRusso's Miyagi Do team, or they join Johnny Lawrence's Cobra Kai team, you could see the dynamics into how they treat each other within, the dojo as a team. I really it's so funny because when you see, the two sides, Miyagi Do and Cobra Kai, you kind of get this whole, it's like a whole, how can I say it, like a West Side story type of thing, where you have um you know the team A over here, team B over here. I'm trying to remember what was the team from the West Side Story, but you had, what was it, like the Puerto Ricans versus the Polish, right? Or even in like classic stories such as Romeo and Juliet, right? The Montagues versus the Capulets. Another better example, Captain America: Civil War, right? You have Team Captain America on one side, you have Team Iron Man on one side, but even then, within those teams, the dynamics of that particular team as to how they work together, or their plan to work together so that they could triumph into overcoming their obstacles, into over or coming or defeating their enemies. It's so interesting to see that, like how, for example, Daniel LaRusso, he's all about, teaching the defense techniques to his students, and you see the whole ambiance of the dojo that he has created, inspired by Mr. Miyagi. It's all peaceful, it's all calm and tranquil, and you see the students kind of learning those techniques, whether it's with Samantha, and of course early on in the show, Robbie King, which we'll get to in a little bit. Even other characters such as Nathaniel, Chris, you see all of their stories, Dimitri, and then on the other side, of course, you have Johnny Lawrence's Cobra Kai. He's a little bit more um, you, learning about offense instead of defense. You see him using more a bit of an aggressive side to teach his kids, like to stand up for themselves and whatnot. Whether he's training with Miguel, with Hawk, Aisha, Tori, and many others. So it's so cool to see that, like, you already get the feel of the two different teams, right? And that's what I find so interesting. Now, in regards to the friendships, another thing that I have noticed is that each character, even the minor characters, have a best friend, of course, that they come in conflict with. Whether the best example that I could give you guys right now is in regards to Dimitri and Hawk, right? Dimitri calls him and Hawk as the binary brothers. But what's so interesting is that, again, going to this whole one team versus the other team, you have one friend, in this case Dimitri, who ends up signing with Miyagi-Do, and then you have Hawk, who ends up signing with Cobra Kai. You kind of see that even though everyone's like paired up, one tends to be a little bit more passive and the other tends to be more aggressive. In Dimitri's case, he tends to be a bit more passive. He wants to learn, he's trying to learn defense so that he could defend himself because he knows that he's not the most popular character out there. And on the other side, though, the flip side, you have Hawk, who you kind of see his aggressive, more dark side coming out, which is kind of why he's more siding with Cobra Kai. He wants to show others that he can be aggressive. So he follows the whole Cobra Kai technique. And of course, like I mentioned before, you also have minor characters such as Nathaniel and his friend Bert. You see Nathaniel siding more with Miyagi-Do. He wants to learn more of the passive side, while Bert, at the beginning of the show, he's more with Cobra Kai. And even newcomers that come into season 2, Chris and Mitch. Mitch wants to learn more about the aggressive side of karate, which is why he sides more with Cobra Kai. And then you have Chris, who doesn't really want to learn the aggressive techniques. He doesn't really find it. Um, he doesn't. Uh, he doesn't feel comfortable basically learning the aggressive techniques from Cobra Kai, which is why he decides to leave his friend Mitch and Cobra Kai behind, and he ends up joining Miyagi-Do because he he prefers to learn more of the defense passive techniques from Miyagi-Do. So that's something I find pretty interesting. And of course, you know, another thing that comes into mind is, of course, since everyone's always like paired up, in terms of friendship, you have one friend who's more passive, one friend who's more aggressive. You kind of see also the possible potential friendship between Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence. Of course, Daniel LaRusso being the head of Miyagi-Do, so again, the passive defensive techniques. And of course, Johnny Lawrence siding with Cobra Kai. He's teaching more of the aggressive offense techniques. So, and that's why they're always butting heads with each other. Yet, at the same time, you do see the potential of a friendship. It's like they're different yet similar. And that is something that Allie, who was, the girl caught in the middle of their love triangle back in their high school days, she even mentions that in season 3. She tells them, you guys are so similar, like, you guys are always fighting with each other, yet you don't realize how similar you are. You probably see yourselves in the other. So it's like, in a way, you guys kind of need each other. So it's so funny how Cobra Kai is so well written in terms of these friendships. Like, yeah, you have these two best friends, or maybe they're not friends yet, but yet you see one more calmer, the other one more aggressive, but they need each other. It's like that whole yin and yang type of mythos, I guess you could say. Again, and that's why it makes it so compelling, which is why at the end of season 3, like I said, there's going to be spoilers here, when you see Daniel and Johnny team up, yeah, they may have different techniques, but the fact that they are teaming up to fight, the bigger bad, which is in this case John Kreese, it's so cool to see that, because you realize that, yeah, these two may have started off on the wrong foot back in the 80s in their high school days, but they do have the potential of becoming such good friends, and they could bring their different techniques and work so well together. Bring that yin and yang basically. Oh, it's so well written. And like I said, in terms of Cobra Kai, it is of course attracting, I guess you could say, bringing back in the audience who were fans of it back in the 80s, and of course introducing it to a new audience. So when you have that of Daniel and Johnny, you also have that in terms of Miguel and Robbie. Yes, right now they are not friends. Right now they are enemies. Right now they hate each other basically. Of course, kind of like Johnny and Daniel, they're starting off on the wrong foot too. And of course, it's over a girl. It's always over a girl. So of course, right now they're on opposite sides of each other. Whether it was in the first season when Miguel was with Johnny, and then of course Robbie was with Daniel. But even now, it's a little bit more serious due to the fact that Robbie decided to ditch Daniel and Johnny for Kreese, which is like, oh no, Robbie, no, don't do this. Now he's like way on the bad side of things. But of course, he and Miguel are still on opposing sides. But I don't know what it is, but you get the sense that these two teenagers, although different, although started off on the wrong foot, of course, both are fighting over a girl. You get the sense that they do eventually need to team up. They need to put their differences aside and, of course, team up, realizing that they probably do have a lot in common and are going to fight the greater evil, so to say. And I think it's so cool to see these kinds of stories. You've seen it multiple times before. I already mentioned, for example, like Captain America Civil War, right? You had Team Captain America, Team Iron Man, two different heroes with different ideologies. Of course, they end up fighting each other, they get pissed off at each other. But when Thanos comes and attacks in Infinity War and Endgame, the two heroes realize that they do need each other. They need to put their differences behind, assemble their Avengers, and fight the greater evil. Which, I mean, again, at the end of season 3, you kind of see that with Daniel and Johnny. And what's even more crazy is that even Kreese, at the end of season 3, he says this was inevitable, which is sounds kind of similar to what Thanos said in Endgame. I am inevitable. I can't say the word right now. Inevitable. But of course, you have Johnny and Daniel team up to fight him, kind of like you had Cap and Iron Man team up to fight Thanos, right? And I'm hoping to see that more down the line with Robbie and Miguel, for the new generation of the Karate Kid, to see those two put their differences aside and team up and realize that there is something, far worse out there, and that they do need each other. They need to team up to take it down, basically. I love it. It's just so cool. It's so well written. I love it. I love it. Now we're talking about friendships, but I also want to go into the romantic love triangles that, of course, are being brought into the show. Um, what I have noticed. Oh, wait! Before we go on to romantic relationships, I also want to bring up some of the other cool friendships that are seen in this show, mostly with Aisha. You notice that it's so interesting how she starts off, calm and sweet before joining Cobra Kai, and she knows Sam LaRusso, right? So you know that she and Sam have a friendship, but since Sam is kind of, so worried about her popularity, kind of drives her and Aisha apart. By the time season 2 comes around, and of course Aisha has really dived into the whole Cobra Kai ideology. Is using more of her fighting skills, becoming more aggressive. She's now more friends with Tori. So who knows? I mean, I wish Aisha came back. It's so sad to not see her in season 3. I really hope she comes back for season 4. But even in terms of like friendships like that, like who's your best friend kind of thing, like she decides, is she gonna side more with Tori, who tends to be a little bit more aggressive, or is she gonna be more rekindle her friendship with Sam, who's a little bit more calm and tranquil, so to say. So it's cool to see even friendships in terms of that being explored. Who is really your true friend, so to say. Um, I mean, I think that it would have been cool if that was explored more if Aisha came back. I hope she does for season 4. I don't know what their plan is for her character, but I would like to see her come back. But anyway, now going on to the love triangles that are explored in the show. Something that I did notice, and I'm pretty sure everyone noticed, is that the love triangle between Robbie, Sam, and Miguel is basically the reflection of the love triangle from the original Karate Kid of Daniel, Ali, and Johnny. It's basically a reflection of those characters. Whether um, you have a girl stuck in the middle between these two guys. One guy who kind of is like the nerd, I guess you could say, and he learns karate, and then the other one who's more of a bad boy. But what's interesting is that even though both have the nerd and the bad boy going after the popular girl, right? The way the boys learn karate is flipped. So instead of in the original Karate Kid, the nerd in that case would have been Daniel, right? He was the new kid in school. He was, kind of trying to find his way and fitting in. He was bullied, but he learns the whole passive defensive techniques from Miyagi. While Johnny was the bad boy, the cool bad boy kid, and he was learning the aggressive techniques of Cobra Kai. But in the new generation, it's flipped. Instead of Miguel, who is the new kid, the nerd, right, learning the passive techniques, he's learning more of the aggressive ideology of Cobra Kai. And then you have Robbie, who is, the bad boy in school, instead of him learning the aggressive techniques of Cobra Kai, well, he is now, and according to season 3, but starting off in season 1, you see him as to what if he learned the passive side and defense techniques of karate, which is why he signs up with Miyagi-Do. So you have both of those, cliche characters of those high school tropes, right? The nerd and the bad boy. But you see how it would have what would have been the flip side if they both learned the different ideologies of karate. What would have happened if, say, Johnny learned from Mr. Miyagi, and what if Daniel learned from Kreese? So in this case, you see that flip version with these new generation of kids, right? And of course, Sam being the popular girl that she is, Allie, who, in the original 1984 classic, she was the popular girl stuck in the middle between these two boys. So, I mean, of course, everyone may have an opinion as to who's the better ship, right? Which one is the better ship? Which one is their OTP? Personally, I like both, and I think that's why, again, it's so well written. The dynamic between, these characters is so cool. And something that I noticed is that when I'm watching from season 1 to season 3, when one of the boys, whether it's Miguel or Robbie, becomes more aggressive, becomes more into the ideology of Cobra Kai, I notice that Sam tends to like kind of push herself away from them. In season 1, when she saw Miguel drunk and he was blaming her for not picking up her phone and everything, she basically, was obviously she was upset and she had it with him. And of course, who was there? Robbie was there to defend her and calm her down. And it's funny because Miguel tries to attack, but um, Sam tries to stop Miguel from attacking Robbie, which is in season 1. Then in season 3, it's the flip side. You see Miguel, he's not into the aggressive ideology of Cobra Kai anymore now that it's under Kreese and not Johnny. So, he's not for Cobra Kai anymore. But now you see Robbie becoming more aggressive due to the fact that he feels hurt, he feels lost, he feels abandoned. So you now see him getting closer to Cobra Kai and learning more of those aggressive techniques. And when he sees Miguel and Sam together, he tries to attack Miguel, and Sam tries to defend Miguel by pushing Robbie away. It's something so interesting to see those two parallels. Again, when both boys, whether Robbie or Miguel, are being dived into the aggressive ideologies of karate from Cobra Kai, Sam tends to like push herself away from them and defend the other boy who is probably going to get attacked by them. So I find that very interesting. You see those in season 1 and season 3, and it's so well written. That's why I love it so much. You see those parallels, which makes the dynamic so much more interesting. And because of that, because Sam, obviously she sides with her father, with Miyagi-Do and whatnot. So she does not, of course, like her dad, she doesn't really agree with the whole aggressive side of karate. So when she sees one of those boys, whether Miguel or Robbie, being aggressive, of course, like I mentioned before, she pushes herself away. But then who comes into the picture? Tori. She then kind of pushes them to release that anger, so to say, to release their hate. In season 2, since Miguel was all upset that Sam left him basically, and now she's with Robbie, who comes into the picture to help him feel better that he didn't do anything wrong? Tori does. Now in season 3, which and possibly season 4, now that Miguel is, all, he's better now, but um, Robbie took the blame, and like I said, Robbie feels guilty, he feels lost, he feels abandoned, he feels that there's no one there for him. So of course he has all this anger built up in him. Sam spending more time with Miguel than Robbie, especially now that Sam saw Robbie become really aggressive. Who's there now to talk Robbie into, try to kick and punch all that anger out? Tori does, and she even tells him in a scene when they're in the dojo, like, her channeling all that anger through karate from the teachings of Kreese has helped her a lot. So again, it's so funny how when both boys are more on their calmer side, they are more with Sam. But when both boys are showing more of their aggressive side, they are more with Tori. And I find that really interesting. So I don't know if you would consider this a love triangle. This is probably more of a love rectangle. And like I mentioned before, in terms of the friendship section, maybe if we're hoping to see Robbie and Miguel team up soon in the future, hopefully like Johnny and Daniel did. Maybe the girls are gonna have to team up too, right? Tori and Sam, because they're really opposite. I mean, Sam, of course, being under the influence of her dad, tends to be more tranquil, versus Tori. She has been through a lot, but she is very aggressive. Sorry, my little dog Daisy's just being so uncooperative. But yeah, and I do like what Sam told Miguel. Everyone has a sob story, but that doesn't give you the right to be a bully. And I like that she said that because, yeah, I mean, when you see Tori's living conditions and how she is with her mom, you do feel bad for her. I'm not gonna lie, but that gives her no right to, terrorize other people, especially Sam. Like, Sam is just in terror of her, and Tori is just. Even Miguel had even said it like at one point, and Tori was like, "Are you what? You think I'm crazy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you kind of are." But again, she needs to find another way to channel her anger. Unfortunately, Kreese is teaching her the wrong way. But of course, let's see what happens later on in season 4. But yeah, that is something what I've noticed in terms of the whole love rectangle. When Robbie and Miguel are showing more of their calmer side, Sam tends to reach out for them more. But when the boys, Miguel and Robbie, are showing more of their aggressive side, Tori jumps into the picture. So that is something I have noticed. So let's see what happens next in season 4. Now, also, I already talked about friendships briefly. I talked about the love rectangle briefly. Now I want to talk about more of the whole sensei and student dynamic. And what's interesting, again, I noticed it in the end of season 3. You have 3 senseis who go from one extreme to the other. You have Daniel LaRusso here, right? Who, like I mentioned before, he teaches the defensive, passive techniques of karate. You have Johnny Lawrence, who's more in the middle. He still may have some aggressive tendencies, but he's trying his best to learn to be a better man. He doesn't want to be, he doesn't want to do the whole no mercy thing because he has learned his lesson back in his high school days. He does not want to be like Kreese at all. So he's trying to work his way around things. So he's more in the middle. But then you have Kreese, who's all the way here, very aggressive, no mercy. He's treating his karate dojo like a war zone due to the fact, I mean, yeah, he is a war veteran, So he probably is suffering from the whole PTSD and whatever, but it is kind of unfortunate to see him carrying that load and bringing it into the dojo with these kids. Even Amanda LaRusso had to call him out, saying like, these are kids, for goodness sakes, like, calm down, kind of thing. But yeah, you see the levels of one extreme to the other. And now, when at the end of season 3, something that I have noticed is that, of course, the 3 main kids that are involved in their love triangle, Robbie, Sam, and Miguel, all see, in a sense, like a father figure in their senseis. You have, of course, Samantha with her dad, Daniel, right? She is his actual daughter, right? So she, of course, was always like his first student since she was little. And now, in terms of Miguel and Robbie, you see them kind of fighting for that father figure within Johnny. Um, Robbie, of course, he feels upset with his dad that he wasn't there. And he, of course, probably is a bit jealous that Miguel's getting more of the attention than him, who is the actual son. So you do like I said, at the end of season 3, you see Miguel siding with Johnny. Which is interesting because even if Cobra Kai, it's not so much about the name Cobra Kai. I feel like in Miguel's eyes, it matters as to who is the sensei, who is the one teaching these techniques. And even when he realizes that Cobra Kai is not under Johnny anymore, he still goes with Johnny. So that goes to show you that Miguel, he sees Johnny as a father figure. Now, in terms of Robbie, I loved how in the beginning of season 1 and season 2, he always saw Daniel as the father he never had. He's learning the opposite from what his dad, Johnny, learned. So, which is why he was under the care of Daniel. And I really like that dynamic. However, it's so sad to see that Robbie has now been brainwashed, I guess you could say, by the ideologies of Cobra Kai under John Kreese. So now at the end of season 3, you see him side with Kreese, who is now his new father figure. He dumped his old father figures, which are Daniel and Johnny, and is now siding with Kreese. Which is like, no, like, why did this have to happen? But again, in terms of the imagery that they use in the show at the finale, it's interesting to see those 3 kids who are involved in the love triangle siding with their father figures, right, which are their senseis. So again, I love the visuals in terms of that. I love the writing. It's so good. And there was an article, actually. I'm going to put it in the description below so you guys could read it in your own time. But someone mentioned in an article as to how Kreese was so desperate in wanting Robbie more than Miguel. And, which is kind of funny. Miguel is a pretty good fighter. He learned very well under Johnny. But of course, why is Kreese so hell bent on getting Robbie? And of course, someone compared that to Star Wars in a sense where Palpatine, right, the Sith Lord, was so hell bent on getting Anakin Skywalker to join him on the dark side and become a Sith Lord, which is Darth Vader in the sense, right? Which is kind of like what Kreese did to Johnny Lawrence. Johnny Lawrence was his number 1 Cobra Kai student back in the 80s, right? Then, of course, when you find out that Johnny has a son, Kreese wants him too, which in the same way is like Star Wars. Palpatine has Anakin, who is now Darth Vader. Palpatine finds out that Anakin has Luke Skywalker, his son, and even in Return of the Jedi, Palpatine wanted Luke to join him, which is why he wanted, when Luke and Vader were fighting in front of the Emperor, Palpatine was kind of like encouraging Luke Skywalker to fight or kill his father, Anakin. So I liked how someone brought up that dynamic, that comparison, and it is pretty true. You do kind of see Robbie falling to the dark side, right? Under this evil figure, so to say. And in a sense, Johnny, when he was younger, kind of did the same thing, but he doesn't want that for his sons, whether Miguel or Robbie. He doesn't want that to happen to them. But unfortunately, it happened to Robbie. Kreese got him. So, I mean, that leaves so many questions as to what's going to happen in season 4. I mean, we know that Daniel and Johnny are now teaming up to fight the big bad Kreese. And it makes me wonder, like, now you see Miguel and Sam are together. So does that mean Robbie? Like I said, Robbie's showing his aggressive side, so he might be going with Tori now. Tori is coming into the picture. So I guess we're gonna have to see what happens. What's gonna happen at the next All Valley tournament. And again, this is just something I wanted to share. It's very brief. I wasn't gonna go into a whole deep analysis, but these were just some thoughts I wanted to share. Some things that I have noticed in terms of the character relationships within the show. And again, the visuals, the writing, that's what makes it so good. I love seeing that kind of stuff. But yeah, so anyways, guys, let me know down in the comments below what you guys think. Is there any, cool little details or Easter eggs that you guys may have noticed in Cobra Kai? Who is your favorite Cobra Kai character? And also let me know, you guys like Team Miyagi Do? Are you guys Team Cobra Kai? Who is your favorite sensei? Is it Johnny, Daniel, or Kreese? Which one is your favorite pairing or your favorite ship? Are you guys more, Robbie and Sam, or Sam and Miguel, or Miguel and Tori, or Robbie and Tori? I mean, who's your favorite, right? There's so many cool elements in this show, which is why it's so good. Other than that, guys, let me know down in the comments below, like and subscribe, and as always, take care, guys. Bye.